Welcome to the first episode of the Windsurfing Podcast. Yes, this is where Windsurfing.TV gets in-depth. We go deep underground and we try and find out the dirty little secrets behind the windsurfing industry. But it's not me who's going to be covering the podcast. We've got a new kid on the block. We've given him the job. Is he up to it? I think you'll find he is. He's by his own admission a windsurfing nerd, a boffin. He knows everything, a super fan, and he's a windsurfer himself. He's been there from the beginning. He's won youth world titles, and last year he has ground away and finally got on the podium in the PWA. Who am I talking about? Another clue? He sailed Jaws. Yeah, he's a bit of a wave sailor. He's made it into the wave fleet in the PWA. Come on, he's got big hair. Maciek Rutkowski, yes, the man from Poland, and he's a big fan of podcasts as well. He's been going on at me saying, come on, I want to see podcasts on Windsurfing TV, and I just went, well, how about you do it? So he has, and we have got some great guys lined up. We've got world champions, we've got ex-world champions, board shapers, brand managers, all coming to you. We're going to be available on all the normal platforms, Spotify, SoundCloud, etc. But we're also on YouTube, yes, so you get a little bit of video and you get to see into the eyes of the interviewees. What we want from you is feedback of what you'd like to see, who you'd like to be interviewed. Do you like the video format, or should we just stick with the audio? Any feedback is definitely welcome. Now, we have got ex-wave world champion, all-round bad boy who is now reformed. You know who it is? Living in Cape Verde? Yes, it's the one and only Josh Angulo.
So Josh, great to have you on. It hasn't been the easiest of tasks to get you on. You're a busy man. Tell us a little bit, what are you up to these days? And I guess you're in Cape Verde. How's the whole COVID situation going on there?
Well, yeah, first of all, how is it, Maciek, and everybody out there in internet world? It's good to be even involved in windsurfing at this level. Here in Cape Verde, we've actually, this whole quarantine thing we went through, had some amazing days of windsurfing. Fortunately, that was the bright side of it, silver lining. Here in Saul, we had no cases of COVID-19. So, we're blessed to have ridden that part. I mean, who knows if it's around or not, that virus, I don't really know what any of us really know. But, we're getting through it. The economy shut down. Our borders are shut down. We live off of tourism. So that's been a struggle for the whole country. And the government's doing what they can. They're doing a pretty good job. We're just kind of going through day by day. It's been busy to hook up with you because we decided to kind of refurbish our windsurf club. The last 3 years, pretty much, we've been working on this little hotel that I'm sitting in now, and got that off the ground. Was going good this winter, and then this whole thing shut down. But we have a lot of faith and confidence everything will bounce back. And so we've just been kind of, the first couple of weeks of quarantine was amazing. Holiday with the family. Fortunately, had a lot of time with the kids, barbecue at home. We live on the beach, so we were on the water. We had a blessed time, but for sure you get to the point where like, hey, I want to do something. I want to do some work. I want to, go windsurfing without being scared of the police coming down and looking for me. So now we're getting to that point. The beaches are opening today here in Cape Verde, tonight at midnight. That's kind of a Cape Verde thing. Like, let's open the beach at midnight, rather than at 9 a.m. the next day. But I guess it's just the day change. So that's the long and short of what I've been up to. And that's pretty much it.
So let's do a little plug. What's the name of your hotel so the people out there can, when they
The
visit?
name of the hotel is Angulo House, and you can look at angulohouse.com. Perfect. And if you contact us direct or through booking, whatever, come through me direct. You want to windsurf, we'll throw a little deal together for you and make it happen. I've been trying to get Maciek down here to come hang out with us and do some clinics or something, and the guy's ripping so hard. So I'm assuming soon you'll be in such high demand that your €1,000 a week Maciek Rutkowski clinic is gonna come.
And the suite. You have a nice suite on top, right? Sea view and everything.
Crazy suite up top. There's a big villa. There's some There's a 2-bedroom apartment. There's a 3-bedroom villa for a family. That's pretty pricey, but worth it. The 2-bedroom villa is amazing, or apartment. There's some 1-bedroom with kitchenette for a couple people, a couple friends. And then there's individual rooms that are super cozy, good internet, air conditioned, hot showers,
Okay.
nice.
Hold your horses. Hold your horses. We only have an hour. Okay, so you mentioned your family. Little Noah, maybe not so little these days. I've seen him on social media foiling around. Are we gonna see the third, I guess, Angulo on tour, or what's going on with that?
You know, Noah's a good kid. He's super nice. He's loving, and he's got a lot of his mom in him, I guess, on that side. And he's pretty big like me. When I see him slaloming, it's funny. I look out there like, wow, that's a spitting image. He's got that same kind of stance. He looks like he's going pretty fast. I've got him on some kind of funky gear right now, so I don't have him tuned up yet on good gear. It's fun to see him sailing. We've been having fun. He's definitely better than me at foiling. He did it before I did, and he's like, come on, Dad. He got me out there, and I was pretty scared. I did a bunch of those wheelies and stuff that you do. But now, you know, kind of getting into it. We've been wave sailing. Noah's a good surfer. His background is surfing. That's what he did first. And definitely in surfing, it's fun to watch him come into his own, starting to hit the lip and get his barrels and stuff. So, yeah, I'm blessed with Noah. And then the little one, Josiah and Jeremiah, are coming right behind him. So it's fun to see the kids getting into it.
So maybe one on PWA, one on WSL. Let's see how it goes.
I'll definitely be pushing the one on the WSL. Whatever they want to do, you know, if they want to ice skate, great. You know, I mean, whatever the kids want to do, we try to get them some good schooling and, you know, read their Bible and put Jesus first, and everything else is extra.
So you obviously living in Cape Verde now, but you did live in Hawaii. You lived in France, Boston, Florida. Where else? Lisbon. Is Cape Verde the one? You staying there for like you're gonna retire? You're gonna stay there, or?
Not really. I mean, Cape Verde is definitely probably not our long term. We'll always have a place here. You know, we have one now, so we'll have a place in Cape Verde. I love it. I mean, it's amazing, but it's lacks in some areas. What it's great in some areas, it lacks in others, like everywhere in the world. You know, Poland, you probably have a great infrastructure, great restaurants, movie theaters, nightlife.
But it's cold as hell.
Yeah, it's cold and you're not having roping point breaks. You know, here we get roping point breaks. It's warm, but there's nothing else to do, you know. So it's great now for working. The tourism's growing. It's a cool lifestyle, but for sure, as kids grow and you want to give them other education and want them to see other things, the hope is to be able to travel with the family and, you know, base in different areas. And, you know, we just pray about it and see where it's going to go. But God's got his plan, and we try to walk into that path and see what happens. But for the moment, this is where we are. So we're blessed and making the best of it.
Okay, so you were born and raised.
Is that your Finian Maynard logo? Look at that. Finian. Woo! Yeah, buddy. FMX Racing. I'm proud of you, kid. Your Raiders suck, but you know what? Your boards are fast. Love you, bro. Okay, back to the interview. This is a little side clip. I'm proud of Finian. I'm happy for him. Arnon, too. Arnon's got his own brand. Good for you, Arnon. All the boys are killing it, man. I love it. Good to see it. Proud of all my buddies.
We'll get to your brand. We'll get to your brand. Don't worry.
We don't even got to do that. But I needed to, you know, plug my boys because I know how hard it is, and they're working hard, you know.
Yeah, definitely now. But anyway, you born and raised in Hawaii. You actually originally from Oahu, right? And then
I was born in California, but I went to Oahu when I was 2 months old. My family had been living on Oahu. I think at that time, my mom decided to have the birth in California, whatever. For whatever reason, they went back to California for the birth. And I was born, and then they went right back to Hawaii.
Okay, so
I grew up on the north shore of Oahu.
Lived on the north shore, actually, of Oahu, and then moved to Maui. Was that windsurfing related? I guess your dad, your older brothers were already into windsurfing. I guess Maui is the windy one. Was that fully like, okay, we're gonna get the boys, we want to spend as much time on the water as possible, or what was that about? I mean, the North Shore of Oahu is not the worst place to be.
Yeah, I mean, my family, my dad and Mark. My dad, I mean, he's our dad, so we were just kids. He got into windsurfing, and actually the coolest thing ever. One time I sat with him in a hotel in Thailand and over dinner, and he told me his whole history on the thing, and it was like the first time from like we sat there for hours in the Novotel in Suvarnabhumi Airport. And it was a rad story what my dad has done and what he's seen and where he's come from and his background, and the first windsurf board from the guys in Kailua asked them to make a board, and the Kevlar board, and so on and so forth. But he'd have to tell you the story because it's way beyond what I'm capable. And he got into windsurfing, and we were all surfing. He was surfing, making surfboards, and that's how he ended up in Hawaii. And then the whole graduation was to Maui. I mean, Mike Waltz and Matt Schweitzer and those boys started sailing Hokipa and the Grand Prix, and I went there. We were going back and forth as little kids, 5, 6 years old. We were going to Maui. My brother was starting to compete in the juniors, and then the whole thing took off. And at Angulo, Hawaii, probably if everywhere in the world I go, somebody's got an Angulo Hawaii. Go, when your dad's board, it's great airbrush. She just loves you. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Thanks, Dad. I mean, he set the tone, and my brother Mark, came on the scene, and to this day, I think he's done some moves that nobody else has done. The kids have kind of tried to replicate some of the stuff. I mean, has anybody really done a mutant except Mark Angulo? I don't think so. I can't.
I haven't seen one.
I don't think anybody else has ever done one. Anybody that says they did it was probably by accident and kind of, I did a mutant. But for sure, to actually go out and do what Mark's done over and over, the guy's pretty incredible, for sure.
Yeah, invented the goiter, invented the 360, a lot of clue first stuff, mutants, a lot of just different, I guess thinking outside of the box, taking stuff maybe from surfing. I don't know where he came up with those things. I mean, it's pretty radical.
He was always super talented, and when we were growing up on Oahu, he was a really good surfer, like pro level. He was surfing with all the guys, charging at a young age, charging pipeline, Waimea Bay. He was a young guy getting into it, and then took that whole waterman technique into windsurfing. And that whole time in Maui that the thing was exploding, and all the energy and just the stoke and the amp. And I was a little kid watching it and kind of getting a bit of it on the sidelines, and that's what I got kind of into that vacuum and pulled up into that whole scenario. And it was insane. I mean, we'd go to Sprecklesville or whatever, jumping days, all the boys like, we're jumping. And, the first time we sailed Jaws, and it was like, we're jumping off the rocks, and hopefully we don't die. And, it was all just hardcore. And that term is maybe overused, but it was pretty stinking hardcore, bro. I'm telling you, it was rad. And Mark was at the forefront. He was the only guy that came along that was kind of as badass as Mark was Polikow, and like there was this little bit of unwritten rivalry, I think, and then Polikow was more the clean cut, ripper in a sense. He had his style, but Mark was that just loose cannon. Nobody could touch him. He didn't have that real competitive acumen of where he wanted to go win contests. He won some events by default just because he was that much better than everybody. But the fact was he wasn't a very good competitor. He would just drop the ball in a final. And it was like, come on, bro, just don't fall on all you gotta do is finish your turn. So, he won a lot of events just by being really a lot better than pretty much everybody during a really long era. And that was a blessing to grow up under that wing and have that as your main inspiration, let alone some other guys, and basically that whole group, Mark, Dave Kalama, Rush Randall, Sasha Maye, the Yarmark brothers, Brett Lickle, Mike Waltz, Sierra Emery, There was just, and then more names that for sure I'm forgetting. Just guys all pushing themselves, you know, and then that whole Maui thing, iron sharpens iron, like the Bible says, and it's the same in sports.
Yeah, so you're seeing that your brother, I guess, quickly became a star of a very fast rising sport. Was there ever a doubt you're gonna follow in those footsteps? Did you maybe want to do your own thing, or you were like, okay, I just want to be as good as my brother or better, or, you know, I want to be a windsurfer. I want to be a pro windsurfer.
No, yeah. I mean, to be honest, from a little young age, I was already like, yeah, I'm going to be a pro windsurfer. You know, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I definitely wanted to be as good or better. My oldest brother, Mark, was my hero. You know, that's who I wanted to be as good as or better. And as things progressed, there's other guys I was in competition with, Polacao. I mean, I competed against Robbie Nash, Dunkerbeck, Polacao. And then I went to the next generation, Cowley, Philip Koster, Victor Fernandez, you know, so definitely got to spend a few generations. I mean, my early days was competing with guys like Mike Waltz. And so I definitely had different generations that I got to compete against and learn from and respect and admire. And that was amazing, you know, and for sure from a young age, like, that's what I want to do. And that's what I did. And it took me around the world.
We had Jimmy Diaz on the show and asked about his top 5 windsurfers. He mentioned you and Ricardo as the two that he thinks were like the most naturally gifted, talented. Did you see that it was coming easy to you? Did you feel like, okay, I'm going to learn this move, or okay, I want to do that, and you just went out and did it?
I think when you were younger, you weren't thinking about whether it was coming easy or not, to be honest. You weren't thinking. And in hindsight, if I thought more, my career would have been much more successful, you know, and a lot more fruitful in a sense, definitely financially and competitively. But at that time, it wasn't about thinking. It was about having fun and ripping and pushing the envelope and partying and doing whatever I wanted to do, which not necessarily the best thing to do. And that's probably a good segue for you. But it was definitely like, you're young and you're growing up in Maui, and the windsurf bubble was really dynamic at that period of time. You had all the Euros coming over, Tiga team, F2 team, blah, blah. It was big. Windsurfing was big, and you're the young little rat that's really shredding and kind of spanking guys, at least in Maui, you know. But the wake-up call when is all of a sudden you go to Europe and you pretty much feel like you can't even water start, you know. So there's that whole transition of humility that you have to go through that was frustrating when you're an arrogant little kid.
Yeah, so you touched on the rock and roll lifestyle and all the, I guess it was the golden times, right? Money, magazines, TV, fame to a certain extent, all those things. And you seem to get a little, you know, hooked up in the whole thing. How did that come about, and what do you think was the reason for you to get all mixed up in the, you know, in the partying and all that kind of situation?
I don't really put my finger on one reason. I mean, I can honestly say growing up in Hawaii, growing up in Maui is a trippy little island, you know, and definitely like islands in general, I think have a lot of different dynamics that you have to take care of and be aware of. Maui was one of those at that period of time. And I know my parents did as good of a job as they could have, you know, to try to guide me and my brothers, and gave us a lot of love, a lot of spiritual guidance. I mean, and that's a big reason why I'm sitting here in front of you alive and, you know, reasonably successful and happy as much as can be hoped for, I think, today, is because of the upbringing I had in my house and my family and stuff. As far as why you get off track, why you start partying, why you start going crazy, I don't know. I think it's really, you're exposed to a lot of things in Hawaii. Maui for sure at that period of time. What's that? Early 90s, into the mid and late 90s. You're exposed to a lot of stuff, and it's very widely accepted, and so it's easy to get it caught up in a whirlwind of activity that's not necessarily the most positive.
Yeah, and I think we've seen stories of a lot of, let's say, alternative sports people getting caught up, like the Irons brothers or Oki, which actually you mentioned, I'm not sure, that at that time you went to a Billabong meeting. Sorry for the little thing, but that you guys were the famous and the money making ones, not the surfers like it is today. I think you mentioned that.
That was actually my brother's era. I think my era was a little different, but I remember sitting with Aki at a breakfast like way back. I was a little kid still. I was like, right, hey, mate, your brother's Mark Angulo, mate. This is my best Aussie accent. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, how much does he make? I was like, I think he makes, and I'm like a little kid. I overheard, so I think he makes X amount. He's like, whoa, mate. But yeah, I think back in those very early days, the windsurfers were making as much or more than the surfers, which obviously is the farthest from the truth now. I mean, it's a more than a flip of the coin. But for sure, I mean, Mark, and I don't know, we're getting off track. Where are we going with this?
No, just to show the people the scale of what you are getting into. It's not like I'm going to be a professional windsurfer now. I'm going to go to a few little events in the Canaries and whatever, maybe a bigger one in Silt. It was like a full-on circus.
Just to kind of put it into perspective, like you would negotiate contracts and you'd sit down in like a hotel in Bear Sea because you're at a big indoor where, first of all, you're making bank. You're getting paid to be there. There's like appearance fees, and like Robert Taratahau and these guys are making like serious money over the weekend. And you're a lower level guy, but still making good money. And, your sponsors are like, oh, we're going to pay you X amount next year. You're like, no, I want X amount plus. They're like, yeah, okay, fine. Let's do it. It's not like nowadays. Nowadays, like, can I have 3 extensions and I'll give you back 1 at the end of the year? I mean, I shouldn't give away the whole secret to professional windsurfing, but, it's definitely, and fair enough. The market is hard. I mean, to anybody who is dealt with windsurfing as a business, understand it's very tricky. Small margins, expensive products. The boards are too good. You know what I mean? If you make a composite carbon windsurf board, how hard and how much expertise goes into that, from the prototyping to the guys in Cobra to the packing of it and shipping and storing it in a nice rack on a rug floor in an AC surf shop. I mean, there's so much expense in it, and yet it sells for 2,000 euros, which everyone's like, it's so expensive. But actually, for what the product is, it's not. And so the market's tricky for sure. And back then, it wasn't. There was a lot of money, a lot of boards getting sold, sales getting sold, equipment getting sold. A lot of people windsurfed. It was cool. Still cool now.
Definitely.
Even cooler.
Definitely. So what age did you actually get on tour, like fully started traveling and doing that whole circus?
Full time, I think, was right out of high school, 92. I was 17. I did some events in World Cups in Japan and Aruba before that. But full time, I was like straight out of high school, boom. I think I went straight to Canaries, Gran Canaria. And that's when I talk about like the humility wake-up call. You're shredding in Maui and you get to Canaries and you're like, you can't even jump, you can't even do a turn. You feel like the biggest kook in the world, and you come up against like, you meet some kid named Vidar Jensen and you're like, who's this in 44? And then you just go, wow, that guy's the gnarliest guy I've ever seen. One-handed double forwards with a seat harness, and so your whole world gets turned upside down, and so everything changes. And I battled against that for a long time. For a long time, I try to keep a little bit this Hawaii mentality to a certain extent. But once I finally pulled back and you really start looking at the for me, it was looking at the European guys, Donkerbeck, Belbioch, the training, the seriousness, the dedication, the faster boards, the single fins. I mean, it's funny because now I'm a kook for being on a single fin. But back then, I was on real whippy little twin fins, and these guys are on single fins, just launching big Baron Flessner, whatever. But you can't get the loft off of multi-fin boards like you could on those longer single fins, and these guys were going 10 times higher. So watching and learning and taking a step back and humbling yourself and going like, it's not because you were born in Hawaii or you're an Angulo or whatever that you automatically are given some world title trophy. You have to really go run and work out and train and make fast boards and sail overpowered and, do all this stuff to win heats. At the end of the day, you just got to win your heat. You don't got to rip. You got to win your heat. And when you win your heat, you win contests, you win titles.
Yeah, I think you jumped from 92, like 11 years to your world title, to your first world title in 03. What was going on in between? Were you just really enjoying the tour? How serious were you? And did you kind of get sidetracked and then get serious again? And then, or what was going on? How was your mindset?
Yeah, no, I mean, I spent a lot of years wasting time. I mean, I don't want to say that because the other day I talked to my wife and I was like, I think I do have regrets. Like sometimes people I have no regrets. That's what everybody says. I have no regrets. And actually I sit and I think of certain things and like, yeah, I regret that. Like, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I did some things different. So you don't want to beat yourself up about it or dwell over doing the wrong thing. The main thing is if you treat somebody wrong, you try to cross paths and be like, hey bro, I was sorry about that thing in 91 in Playa del Inglés, whatever. But you might see somebody only 15 years later. You want to try to clear up loose ends. As far as being disappointed about poor results or things like that, there's competition is one of the hardest things ever. I mean, you're experiencing it yourself and you're getting better and you've done great this last year. But to get there, how many times if you're as fast as everybody, you're faster than most guys, you're jibing good, you're starting good, yet you can't get through a heat. It's just putting it together in the contest is a hard thing to do. So part of it's that, and it's also the focus and boards and, and being professional. Once you get that click, it's like you come out of the cloud and you get serious. But also I was drinking and partying and doing drugs and different things. So it doesn't help, bro. You can have a little success here and there off of raw talent, but you can't consistently, bring results if you're not doing the right thing. It's clear.
Yeah, I kind of did my homework a little bit and watched some of the videos and the windsurfing movie. That's like my favorite part of all time, where you really open up, about you call it substance abuse problems, and then you go to the whole thing in Cape Verde and winning that event, and that's like amazing. I get chills every time. But also there's like a 2000 video where you say like, okay, now I'm here. I'm not partying anymore. I'm here. I'm focused. Like, how was it? Because I kind of, from what I know you're not exactly an in-between person. You're like either there or one way or the other, right? So I can only imagine.
How we say in Creole, 8.80, 8 or 80. You're either 8 or you're 80. It's like no in between. Yeah, I mean, I think what you understand is if you have a certain type of addictive personality, it can carry into work, it can carry into a lot of areas, and it can be positive, but you have to balance it out. For sure, if you're addicted to drugs and alcohol, it's the most detrimental, or it's one of the most detrimentals, because it's a real immediate effect that can take you in a downward cycle. You can get out of that, and then you can get addicted to competing, or working or something. And you think, oh, I'm so positive, but yet you can put your family to the side. You can put your spiritual walk to the side. You can put a lot of things to the side, and somehow you're telling yourself, oh, but I'm positive. This is good. This is good stuff. It's not. I think anywhere in life, you really have to, people say, oh, it's how many times when I was partying, people are like, oh, you got to just be balanced. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever, but it's the truth, for sure. Me, I don't drink anymore. I haven't for 13 years because I don't believe that it's worth me even trying to do it. I've tried it enough times. It didn't work. So it's not like something that I need in my life. It doesn't bother me when other people do it or I'm around it or whatever. I don't hang at the discotheque. I'm in bed by 9 because I'm usually pretty tired if my wife let me sneak off, but sometimes I'm trying to change diapers or make bottles or, I watch cartoons. Spider-Man is the new one right now. So it's basically, look, life goes on, man. You know what I mean? And I can't tell you how blessed I am, Maciek, to be sitting here not feeling some of the things I felt 20 years ago. Not being in some of those downward spirals or dark places or moments of despair and helplessness, and by the grace of Jesus in my life and the Holy Spirit in God's hand, I've been able to come out of that. And also along the way, like getting sober is one thing, but then you have to learn, like, well, you're still kind of an a-hole, and you're still selfish, and you're still arrogant, and you're still impatient and anxiety and all this other stuff. So then you start to kind of try working on those one by one to be a halfway normal person, and try to get along with people, and most importantly, your family, because they're the ones at the end of the day that really count.
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I'm sorry to drill you about this. I know it's probably
drill like my dentist. Drill me, buddy.
But because we all, like in movies, it's always shown like there's this one big break, or the guy did his first line, and the guy, or he had some demons already, and he got into drinking or whatever. It's always shown like this big picture. And from what I understand, I mean, we all like to party from time to time, and you just like to party, and you got hooked up. It's not a big thing, is it? Like it just got a little more, a little more frequent, and then all. Are you
really trying to skirt around the question, Maciek? What's the question, though?
The question is, like, when do you realize, like, I'm deep, I'm doing more partying than I'm doing windsurfing, or I'm doing.
That's a good question. And it's usually you don't realize it, and when you finally do realize it, it's a little too late to like turn the switch off. So that's where the whole problem comes into place. You, like you say, you're having fun, and you're like, oh, we're so radical, we're sailing, we're ripping, we're partying. It's all going on. You're like living this lifestyle that seems great, but then before you know it, you're losing sponsors, you're running out of money, you're sleeping on your friend's floor, and then your friend doesn't even want you on his floor anymore. And, then you're kind of, your family's not answering the phone. So then you kind of get to the point where, oh, maybe I do need help, right? I'm past the point of where I should be at. And you realize that, and then you like keep going 5 more years or 10 more years, down the wrong path. Because if it was easy, people would just like stop, because, you definitely get sad and depressed and go through a lot of bad things when you're doing the wrong thing. And basically you get to a point where, oh, I got to give this up. And then you're driving by the beach in a dark car, and you see everybody out ripping, but you're not out with them. You're on a different path. And so that's not a good feeling. That's definitely not a good feeling. The realization is at one point, getting clean is usually pretty far down the road for, I think, most people. And a lot of people don't pull out of it. That's the tough part. I think in general, a lot of people do, though. It's kind of like you're a kid, you're being radical, blah, blah. And you start growing up, responsibilities, maturity, things you just, like, they're not as attractive anymore. So, but for me, it was a bit rough. I can honestly say there were some scary times, and definitely not missing them.
What role did windsurfing play in that whole equation of getting clean? Because you mentioned your family. I guess you're now wife, you were already together, but what role did windsurfing? Because I guess when you're in that stage, you don't think about windsurfing much. You don't get out of bed like, okay, I'm gonna go windsurf today.
I mean, you still do. You think about windsurfing, you think about your family, you think about, you don't want to be a total dick all the time. You just end up being one. It's not like a happy place that you want to be at. But I kind of lost track there. What were we talking about?
The biggest motivation, basically, to get out of it, get clean,
Right. The biggest motivation was, I mean, it's like when you see your soul slipping away. You know what I mean? When you look over the edge and between God and Satan, and you're getting closer to Satan rather than God. You know what I mean? And then hope you don't know what I mean. But at that point, you kind of go like, you feel like you have one last grasp. And if you don't reach out and call upon Jesus, you're done. So fortunately, understanding that and having that little bit of last grasp energy within me at one point in time, I did do that. And God's been very faithful, because it's written in the Bible over and over. I mean, and it's in the Bible that he doesn't allow us to go through more than we can handle. And also it's written that God will be faithful to finish the good work that he's began in us. So the good work he began in me as a kid in Sunset Beach Christian School down at Keiki Road down there, basically going to church with my family at Waimea Falls Park. And then it's like many years later, those seeds that are planted, God's good work keeps going, and the glory is all to him, because he pulls us out and he provides us tools. And it's written, and it's often true in our life. Even later, when you pull out of that stuff, you're tempted with other stuff, and you have other stuff in front of you. But wherever there's temptation, wherever there's sin, there's also a door out of it. You also have a choice. And you kind of get to a point where you gain a little forward momentum, and you stop being such a little wimp and stop being like, oh, I'm just going to give in. Oh, I can't handle. Oh, it's too much. And you're just like, no, I'm going to just go to bed. I'm going to just run away from this and sleep. And eventually that becomes easier. And like, I'm not going to turn my head and look over here, that's going to make my mind messed up. So you eventually start gaining some strength. And for me, it's 100% spiritual. That's my foundation, my rock. And second, my wife has been amazing. Claudia, she's gnarly. I mean, I'm scared, but I'm also completely blown away by what a rad woman she is. She somehow endured me and also raised my kids, and she kept this whole family together. So when you come to this realization about that, and thank you for allowing me for being so long-winded. When you come to that realization, then you're able to start giving to others, and you start with your wife, and your kids are the first and foremost. And then you're able to kind of start breaking down the stuff that's inside of you that used to be like this real barrier of roughness. And then you get softer, and God softens your heart, and then you're able to deal with stuff on a day-to-day basis, and less conflict and less aggression and less bad situations.
Balance, I guess, a little bit more balance, yeah?
more balance and more happiness and more spirituality, more blessing. So it's like a positive roller coaster, positive spiral, upward spiral rather than a negative downward spiral.
Did you have to get away from Maui for that to happen?
Actually, I got sober in Maui. So, at my friend's house and my brother's keeper up in Makawao, and, the Dung family, Mark and BJ Dung, they helped me out a lot. I had different moments of sobriety and stuff, but definitely hanging out with them for a year, that was a turning point in my life that I was opened my eyes and learned a lot at that time. And definitely, I think the reaching out to them and going there and their Christian connection and their experience that they've already had, them sharing that with me, that was fundamental in my life. And it sticks with me to this day. I mean, it's like I can hear, and it's funny, my good friend, Pastor Mark, he'd be like, brother, you might leave, but you're always going to hear me in your head. You know what I mean? You're always going to hear. And so I'll be somewhere in the world and I'll hear Pastor Mark in my mind, and I just start laughing and just like, I love that guy, because he's rad. So
Middle of the heat, the first mark.
Yeah, exactly. Right before a start, for sure.
Okay, so then obviously your results, they started improving. I actually managed to get some old results, like from 2000 onwards. And you went from like 8th to 4th to 2nd, and then 2003 happens and you come like 4th or something in Pozo, which you mentioned was a long process to get, past that mental thing of, I'm from Hawaii, there's big waves, Pozo is small waves, it's jumps, is totally different. And then 2nd in Silt, and boom, you're world champion. How?
Exactly. I mean, so from a Maui boy winning a world title with a couple of European events, that was definitely because you change your mind frame. You change your mind frame, you change your boards, you change your training, you change everything. You kind of, Maui's there, it's in you, that background. I thank my parents. Sometimes I call up my mom and say, thank you so much for raising me in Hawaii, because you get a base that you can't get anywhere else in the world from what I've seen yet. And so Maui's, Hawaii in general, Oahu, Maui, Kauai, you get these upbringings that you can't get elsewhere. But for sure, jumping into the European scene, you got to adjust, you got to play the game, and you got to learn, you got to get better at it. You got to be, I was super amped up. 2003 was a year I willed my way to it. It was all mental. It was like I had this almost panic in the beginning of the year of like, I have to win. I'm going to win no matter what. And it's like I told myself that, and I trained every day at this little spot up on the east coast of our island here. Nobody around, like one little fisherman. And I had these really forward-thinking boards at the time. It's funny, like that Starboard Evo came out, but it came out after what I won on in 03, which was, so often it's funny, like the Angulo stuff, it's really ahead, but we're maybe crappy commercial guys, or we don't know how to bring it to market well or whatever. But definitely, I mean, my dad did, seeing it back in the custom days. But definitely, as far as being ahead on product, I think we always have been. And that's been an advantage back when we were wave riding on Maui. During the world titles that I did win, equipment was a huge part of it. Being on stuff that sets you apart, so you look different in the water. And, I was stoked to get that little monkey off my back, Maciek. I'll tell you what, I would have been happy, over the moon with one world title, one and done, like whatever, I got it. Okay, I can shut the door, and God bless me with 2, so that was even better.
You win on same points with Bjorn on countback. And did anybody, I know the windsurfing world, and how people can be, and did anybody try to sort of like tell you, you need to win another one because it was only 2 events, or it was, I don't know, it was on countback, or whatever.
To be honest,
you know?
at that period of time, there was a lot of years that were like that. I think McKercher won on one event. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been 1.5 events or something. But it was a world title, and Scott McKercher is a world champion.
I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care.
Well, Patrice Delbiac, I'm pretty sure won on one event or 1.5 events or something like that.
Yeah.
I think maybe 2 events. There was quite a few years like that. And for me, if I was a European sailor and I won on 2 events in Europe, that would be one thing. But I'm a Hawaii sailor, and I won with there being 2 events in Europe. It wasn't like there was a Maui and a Diamond Head. It was like, no, it was Pozo and Zilt, and I won. So nobody tried to take that away from me. I had a lot of congratulatory things. Bjorn was cool about it, and it was.
You won enough.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, you mentioned your unique style and looking different and setting yourself apart. But also, if I look at you and your brother, you guys don't sail alike at all. I mean, like your brother is a lot about moves and kind of flicky stuff and, flying around the lip, and you're like pure just power and style and like so different. Where do you think that comes from? Not to mention you're different from all the other people in the world as well, but you would have thought like at least you'd sail similar to your brother.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, once again, he's 6 years older than me, 6.5 years older than me. So he's in a slightly different era. He's a regular foot surfer. I'm a goofy foot surfer. He's lighter than I am. I kind of, by earlier on, I was already getting pretty heavy, I guess. So I think we just developed our own unique style. At the end of the day, we each had our own unique style. For sure, we both were extremely propelled and blessed and like pushed with the boards we were riding. And my dad, for years, was the best shaper in the world. Probably still has more in his 2 hands than 85 shapers put together. I'm obviously biased, but he was making us these little shred sleds that we could go out and just. I remember windsurfing, when you get dialed in on your Angulo board, it was like you don't think about you have a board under your feet. You're just one. You're just looking. I'm going there. Boom. You just go wherever you want to go. So then it's all about whatever line you want to draw. You were never held back by your equipment. And that was a nice time.
So then we go a little bit forward. You're living in Cape Verde already, and in 2007 you bring the event there, and what an event it is! Straight off the bat, first year. What was the motivation behind that event, and tell us a little bit about that. I was actually there on the rocks, watching, being absolutely like amazed. It's like it's the best, like one of the best shows ever. I mean, the action is so close. When you're there on the rocks, you feel like you can almost touch the guys, and doing massive aerials, and Kauli doing double the turns of everybody else in that same space with his little twinser, and amazing stuff. So tell us how this came about.
Look, the whole Cabo Verde chapter is like another movie. I spent a lot of years here. I have half my life here. I've been here 22 years on and off, and basically it was a lot of years sailing Punta Preta alone. And actually during this quarantine time, it was the first time I've seen it since 20 years ago. That mast high rifling, only guy in the water, and it felt like back in the day. Except there's these big hotels blocking the wind. But basically, sailing all those years, you start developing these dreams. And over time, I decided and talked with the government to represent Cape Verde, because I felt like I was getting a lot of motivation here, a lot of emotion, a lot of drive. And so I wanted to represent this country. And so I started representing Cape Verde in, I think, 06. And at the same time I was talking to them about doing that, I was able to meet some people and start planting the seed about the contest. And they're kind of like, what? Windsurf contest? And I convinced them. I'm a pretty convincing person when I want to be. And then they went for it.
85 languages as well.
Yeah, we get by okay. But basically it was a time where there was still some real estate investment. It was before the crisis. There was some big investment coming in. One of my friends here, Victor Fidalgo, is a key player in the economy here. And he was very aggressive at the time. And to this day, he's like the main guy pushing tourism here. He just went like, yep, okay, let's do it. Once he finally got on board, got the money, we did it. And basically I had to set the event up, get my gear here, sail. Looking back in time, that's the addictive side. That's the side, like whether you're partying or not, to be able to build a contest, get everybody in, get all the money, make it happen, train, win, tear it down. I could never imagine doing that again. It's so intense. The culture here, the obstacles that you encounter, to be able to do all that and compete and win, it took a lot out of me, and actually it's like right after that was the last time I ever partied. I think I had a little mental breakdown after that event. And then after that I got sober and have been sober since. But basically it was the most intense ever. That event was a change. It was a turning point in this country and in tourism. It was a turning point in the respect that the government and people in the country have for water sports. We've had multiple world champions come out of Cape Verde since then, mainly in kite surfing, but all guys that used to windsurf were windsurfing. One of them, me too, in that contest, some pupils in a sense. And so super proud of the Cape Verde years and even what we're doing now. But for sure, there was a time in life where that whole era was the gnarliest thing ever, and it was intense and it was hardcore, and you're in Africa and you're building stuff and you're bringing in and you're blowing it out to the world, and it was crazy. I could now probably, but back then we did it.
Yeah, amazing feat. And that contest, I mean, it might be the best contest to date, at least for me, in the time that I was able to, watch the videos and let alone experiencing it live. But, even now when I watch these videos and I don't think we had that since the contest.
No, we haven't. We don't even have to really pussyfoot around it. There's never been conditions like that ever in any event. If you want to talk about Namotu, you want to pull out a Namotu video and set it right next to the Cape Verde video, and it's not even about tooting horns or anything. It's just black and white. We were extremely blessed. I remember me and my wife praying about the dates, and God told me to do it in those dates. And it's and that was the dates we did it in, and those were the conditions we got. And basically sickest ever. Sick. I still get chills thinking about it. And to be honest, in all the years I've been here, still one of the better days I've ever seen. I mean, it was all-time Punta Preta. We get days like that, but to have 2 days or like that back-to-back, super windy, cranking surf the whole time, not really letting up, little tidal changes, but yeah, it was amazing.
Well, obviously you didn't set the dates for the next contest, because that was a little worse. 1 year in Coral Jewel, I guess, small. 1 year in Little Hockey.
No, that was only the last year, to be honest, Maciek. We had 3 good years in a row. Okay, 07, 08, 09, they all went off at Punta Preta. 2010, okay, government dropped the ball, didn't sign the contract in time, so they tried to pull a rabbit out of the hat in November. And I was like, look, November, we can try, because sometimes it's good. But that was definitely, no, I didn't set the dates then, because I would have did it in February, March, when it's good.
Yeah. And in 09, you win it again. and again, you're in the driver's seat for the world title, which I guess in 07, you just missed it in Brazil and come third and whatever. But 09, you're like, okay, again, you have that mindset, like, okay, I'm going to freaking win this. Again, you win in Silt. So kind of, I don't know.
So 09, actually, I before 09, like I was mentally done. And I a couple times I told my wife, I'm like, I'm done with this. You know, I had a good run. I'm tired. I can't keep up with the kids. I mean, you know, Philip Koster was coming on. It's like the double loops. And I've done like one half-ass double in my life, probably in Japan, and hurt myself. You know, so these guys are, you know, Ricardo, who you mentioned earlier, Brauzinho, all the young guys are coming up, super energetic, super insane. And I'm telling Claudia, like, I can't. I'm over it. She's like, wait. My wife straight up, she said, wait, you got one more title in you. I know it. And so I'm like, okay. So I did, we were going to do the contest here anyways. So did 09, won here, went to Canaries, snuck out with like a 9th in the double elimination, which was pretty good. And Cowley, who was second here, I'm watching him in the doubles, and he lost at the same place as me. And I was like, whoa, yeah, right on. So we went into Zilt, and I'm just like 0.3 ahead of Cowley. You know, and my hat special mention to Cowley, because in those years, you know, he was part of making my career with how hard he was shredding and pushing me at Punta Preta. Like the whole dynamic wouldn't have been the same if he wasn't there, you know. So I have a lot of respect and thanks to Cowley for battling me. You know, he's the only other guy to ever win at Punta Preta. You know, he got one victory. I got 2 firsts and a second, and I think he got 2 seconds and a first. So he's super gnarly. But we went into Zilt, and I don't know how many times in my life I've watched other guys that go to Zilt in first, and there's no wind, and they get to hang out and eat waffles and win the world title. You know, so I'm secretly like really going like, you know what? I'm 33 years old. I think I was at the time. I just want no wind. I'm going to just sit in the hut and have some rice pudding, and like, hopefully we get this little east forecast and I could just puff around all week and be happy boy and go home with my trophy. And I hadn't even considered a title till after Pose. I'm like, whoa, I'm in the running here. Trippy. So Zilt comes around, and that year was just purple blobs. All you could see. Windguru was just purple and red. I'm just like, oh, my good. This is just like Philip Koster and Cowley, all these rippers. But fortunately, I had enough experience at Zilt by then. And I had my good boards and I had my good rigs, and Art Spooner had me tuned up on some 6 sails. I had fins. I had everything tuned up. I was kind of smart by then. I knew what I was doing. And basically did what I needed to do. Sailed right into second place. You know, Alex Mussolini, he's a little wizard out there, and he won the singles. And then my wife, before Zilt, and I'll share this with you, just to know that how amazing God is. Like, so we're in Maui. We're in Maui before Zilt. And she goes jogging. We're living in my parents' house in Sprecklesville. And she goes jogging and comes back with tears in her eyes. And I'm like, what's wrong, honey? What's going on? Why are you sad? She's like, no, I'm not sad. I'm happy. I'm like, why? She's like, why are you crying? So I'm super happy. I'm like, so God just told me the world, you're going to win. The world title is yours. And so this is like before I fly even to go to Zilt. I'm like, whoa, you know, my wife tells me that God tells her that I'm going to become a world champ. So that's a lot of pressure to deal with, right? You know, what do I do with that? Okay, so now I have to be really faithful and obedient and accept it. But you're kind of, you're doubting yourself like anybody, right? But she's like, yeah, and I'm going to book my ticket just to go for the last 3 days with Noah just to get the trophy. And she did.
No pressure.
No pressure. So I flew and I boom, single elimination. Nardi, Micah was there helping me out. And so I'm sitting in first again, okay? But big forecast. We're going to have more wind, double elimination. Oh, yeah, I owe a beer to Klaus Vogt, because Klaus Vogt starts coming up the singles, just smoking everybody, Zilt boy, Hamburg boy, Port Tack. It's like all time. And he's just taking him down. So I'm sitting in my hotel or my compartment with my wife and my son who flew up for the last weekend. And we're watching the live ticker, no live thing, but just tickers. So, and it's like, oh, Cowley with a big off the lip. Oh, Cowley. Oh, Klaus Vogt with a 360. Oh, but he falls. Oh, no. Oh, Klaus Vogt. So you don't know who's winning. You're just watching these little Jamie Gibbs blurbs. You don't know what's happening, but you're kind of, and then you're like, whoa, it kind of looks like, and then right there, Klaus Vogt wins. Angulo's world champion. So I became a world champion sitting in my apartment with my wife and my kid, having a cup of tea. And so we all danced around and cried and hugged and smiled and laughed. And then I went to the beach and lost my heat. I was like, I was mentally completely done at that point. So I went from second to third. I didn't rig a small enough sail. It was super windy, but I did what I went to do. It's always you want to win everything, but basically you want to win the world title. Once you get the world title in your hand, you have a certain release, and it's this tense energy that you're maintaining to like get to the end. It goes away, and you turn this big ball of mush, and so basically that's what happened. And then we got the trophy and went home.
Yeah, that's what happened to me when I won the Sunday special, in my lake.
Did you get a cherry on top?
Yeah.
You know what a sundae is in America, right?
Yeah. Sunday is the ice cream, the McFlurry, or the smaller McFlurry. Yeah.
No, dude.
No, I don't know. I don't go to McDonald's, never.
It's not a McFlurry. You got to go to like a diner, bro. Anyways, try to get a good Sunday next time you're in US.
Okay, so I guess new motivation. I guess after that you needed new motivation, and you decide, okay, I'm gonna do the slalom thing. Was that somehow connected to Maui Sails? You obviously changed to Maui Sails in 2009, or was that just your own thing? Like, I did slalom back in the day, I was pretty good, and I want to do it again.
Yeah, no, I wanted to slalom. I think Micah actually inspired me one year. He lent me some gear, and I went just for fun to Fuerte. And I think I ended up in the top 10 on borrowed gear. Of course, it was Micah's backup gear. It was all tuned up. He was the top that time, and he was killing it. So, but I was like, I can do this. This is not that hard. It ended up being really hard. But I did. The wave was done. You're heavier. You're not as agile, but you still can sail good. And I felt like some unfinished business with slalom. So I wanted to do that. My head was more now towards training and being serious and being focused. So that's what I wanted to do. And for a long time I was telling Ezzy, like, look, man, let's make some slalom sails. Dave was like, no. He didn't want to do it. So basically I said, look, Dave, I love you, which I do love Dave Ezzy. He's a super cool guy, helped me out a lot. And I said, but I gotta go. I gotta move on. I can't just be a wave guy. I'm done. I did it. I'm gonna wave sail, but so it's like, okay, so bye. So we're like, bye. And I had no sponsors. And then Phil McGain gave me a phone call. Like, bro, what are you doing? What? And I wish I would have delivered. Well, actually, I did deliver. I delivered Maui Sails a world title. Okay, never mind. I did pretty good by then. Sorry, no. I wish I would have did better in the slalom, but at least I delivered one world title. The slalom, I never really had that window where when I got into it, it was already like married, kids, business, had a lot going on when I got into slalom. So as focused as I tried to be, it was hard with everything else going on. I was trying to do board business, starting to do business here in Cape Verde, married, trying to keep a wife happy, which I'm getting better at that, and raising kids. So no excuses, but the reality for anybody who's done slalom seriously, you kind of just got to be single-minded, live in Tarifa, Tenerife, and not think of anything else. And I was not able to do that. However, had a lot of fun years traveling with all you guys and competing, and maybe if maybe get back there for fun for a couple events here or there. This year might be like one event, you know, maybe Fuerte could be the world champion, right? 150 knot day.
I'll give you my second gear.
You got that backup, you got that same mast from Korea. Can I borrow that thing?
So I'll tell the story. So we were in Korea, and I think you wanted to rig your 6.2, which I didn't think it was windy enough, or I was out of that elimination. So I was like, okay, here's my 400 mast. And then you nail the start in the final, you come down the first reach, you jibe in first, you did something in the jibe, or I don't know what happened, but you didn't win that final, but you were flying.
It's going fast.
Probably did an Angulo bottom turn instead of the jibe.
You know what? I remember, you know what the reality is? I didn't have the stamina. I remember Matteo Iachino, like I was as fast and battling with him, but he had more stamina. Already by trying to get by the second buoy, trying to like maintain super hardcore, I couldn't do it. And it's like, so I had to slowly like, or lose everything or give up spots one by one for these younger, more fit, more motivated guys behind me.
So then I was like, we restarted another elimination. So I needed my mast, and I go to you, I guess with another mast or something. And I was like, hey Josh, how's that mast? You're like, it's actually pretty shit. I'm like, what are you talking about? You just almost won the final. If you didn't cook that jibe, you would have probably won the final. You're like, nah, Bryce, nah. And then I took it and I was flying, and then you put something else, and at dinner you were like, yeah, you know what? Actually, that mast of yours was pretty good. And it broke in my face in Fuerte, that same mast. I was qualifying for the final, and on the last reach of the semi, it just snapped in my face. So that mast was fast.
Try to get some new ones.
Yeah, I got a decent one. So anyway, like in 2012, you're with 0.7, and seems like at that time that sail was really ahead of its time. Claudio Badiali design, shout out, you know, they were working, Challenger and 0.7 working together, and that 0.7 sail, I think it's safe to say you were definitely one of the, if not the fastest guy in kind of light to medium wind. Your boards were somehow fitting that as well. What do you remember about that season, and why? Yeah, I think you came.
Yeah, that's one of the things. That's one of those things when you look back sometimes, and you kind of wish you had a second chance. And sometimes, you know, I think at the time, you know, I didn't realize the whole setup, my boards, the Kashi fins at that time were still ahead of their day. Guys ended up catching up and probably making some faster stuff now. But at that time, the Kashis were way ahead, and Micah and I had those. And I think Mortafon and Elbow, a couple guys. And then the sales that Andrea made, you know, and Kuki, same thing, called me up when he saw that I didn't have a sponsor. And he's like, what are you doing? Well, I don't know. So he hooked me up and gave me a shot. And I was at least pleased to give a decent showing on his gear. You know, the Kuki family, Roberto and Andrea, great people. And, you know, it's good to see how fired up Andrea is and what a good job he's doing with his brand. And he's just a super motivated and fun guy to be around. You know? So definitely I enjoyed that time with the 0.7 family, and the stuff was flying. I mean, you look, I mean, that whole Italian scene, you know, the Italians are really good at making stuff. I mean, you go into Cobra factories, a bunch of Italians, and you go in composite places, Italians, you know, windsurfing, yacht sailing. My hotel is covered with Italian stucco outside, and that Italian fly in and do it. Rosario Arena, bro, from Maui. So basically, you know, from historically, Italians are good at what they do. And so you definitely want to eat their pasta and then ride their sails.
Definitely. And what do you think you missed? Because Cookie once mentioned to me that he actually counted your training days that year, and you didn't break the 10 mark. He said like you trained, I think, like 8 days that whole year or something.
once again, what I touched on earlier is this, the whole slalom period for me came a little late. You know, that's the honest truth. I mean, at that time with Fuki, I was living in Boston. So you can sail, those 10 days were the 10 days a year that you can really sail in Boston. I mean, to be honest, I went out, I trained with big wetsuits and gloves and my low tide beach that's like 3 miles long. And I had a little wagon that I'd like wagon all my masts to try to test with a GPS alone. So I tried pretty hard, but at the same time, you're driving home and you're hungry and there's like a Dunkin' Donuts on the way. So you have this, you know, it's, and you got kids at home and there's ice cream and stuff. So there's definitely, when you have a family and you have to like make other money outside of windsurfing, because windsurfing can't really support a family on a competitive level, you have to do other work. And that's what I had to do. And at the end of the day, it's just a lot of balls in the air. You know, I can make excuses or whatever. Look, I didn't have the focus. I didn't have the focus. I didn't have the time to focus. I'm the way how I work is I kind of need some room to like sit and look and analyze and think about it. And then when I see my path, then I can go pretty full speed. It's funny when I travel with Micah, you know, when we get to a tent in Korea or whatever, he's like a machine, like boom, he's done. Everything's organized, you know, and it takes me like a couple days and I'm like figuring out where I want to hang my harness. It's not going to be in the way, you know, and I want to put my towel over. And it's probably drives, I think I probably drove Micah crazy because I remember him telling Claudia, like, I don't know how
drove him into retirement, maybe.
You know? But for sure, if I had it to do it all over, I would have started slaloming serious when I was 15. You know, I mean, that's all of us, right? I'm not unique in the case of if I had a second chance, right? So whatever, had a lot of fun.
You did win a final that year in Turkey, and tell us the story because you almost didn't have your fins, did you?
So that's a story. So I like super professional. I'm going to go to Turkey early to train with Kuki and the boys, 0.17, blah, blah. I fly like 2 days early from Boston. I get in, I wake up early in the morning. I'm like, I'm going to go rig up, setting up my board. I'm like, you know, let me set up my board first, then I'll rig up my sail. I couldn't find my fins anywhere. I look at my board bag, I go back to the hotel, I look at my bag, I'm freaking out. I can't find my fins. And I'm like, I'm going through it in my mind, like, you know, somebody stole my fins. I call up my buddy in Boston. I'm like, dude, drive to my house, open up the garage and see if there's a black bag of fins sitting there, please. He's like, yeah, there's a black bag. So basically I flew to Turkey without my fins. And fins are like tires on a race car. I mean, you can't do it without them. So there was no wind before the event and I'm sitting. And so that day I go back to my hotel, I'm calling UPS, what can I do? And like, everybody's like, dude, don't send them, you'll get stuck. So I basically had to make a choice. It was like, try to borrow some fins. And I mean, is any windsurfer going to give you their best fin? No. You're going to, they're like, oh, here, take this one, bro. Yeah.
Josh, done. Out of the picture.
You'll do great, you know. Looking back, Gonzalo had some cashies that he was going to lend me, and I might have just done fine on like 2 cashies because you only need like 2 fins in Turkey. But I made the call. I bought a ticket. I got a taxi back to the airport the same night, like midnight. I flew back I went from Izmir to Munich. Or Frankfurt, whatever. I think Munich, Boston, Frankfurt, Izmir. But on the way back to pick up my fins, leaving Izmir, because I had just flown from Boston, panicked, flew back to Frankfurt, wherever, Munich. So I fell asleep at the gate of my flight. I fell asleep at the gate and like woke up in this little trance and saw the door close in the plane. And I ran, like banged on the door. And dude, I was done. Fortunately, there was a second flight to Boston that day. I somehow got on another flight, got up. My friend delivered the fins to me. I walked straight back onto the same plane and got on the same seat back to Europe and back to Izmir. And think I ended up 5th or 6th in that contest.
Yeah. It's one of the best all-time stories.
Is anybody going to watch this interview? Like, how long have we been talking? Are you going to like condense this into like 30 seconds? I don't think I can sit through this whole thing, but I mean, whoever's watching, thank you. Thank you for, 1, 2 people, we'll take it.
Perfect. Exactly. Don't worry. We're about to wrap it up. So
I'm cool, but I just feel for the person who's trying to endure this.
This is amazing, man. Don't worry. So Jimmy, when I interviewed him, he mentioned you in his top 5, but he also mentioned you as his worst competitor. He said, like, whenever Josh was at the starting line, I stayed away from the pin. Like, I didn't want to go anywhere close to the pin end. Didn't want to start anywhere next to Josh. So my question is this, because I've been watching now the Last Dance, the Jordan documentary, and I had this little parallel, like, I think you're the one guy on tour, or of any windsurfers that I know, that has that kind of mindset. Like, I'm going to freaking win at all costs. Like, no matter if this guy is going to be mad at me, or if the judges are going to think I'm a dick, or whatever. I don't think you cared. You didn't seem to care. Were you born with that? Did you grow into that? I would personally like to know, because it will be helpful.
I honestly felt like super wimpy compared to all you young guys. Like, I mean, how much scarier is Bruno Martini, for example? I mean, it's like you don't want to be anywhere near that guy on a race course, or what's the other Italian kid that rides for Germany? There's definitely, yeah. I mean, there's definitely some times where like you were battling on the pin or whatever, but they're all little phases. You know what I mean? There's phases where you get a level of aggressivity, which you have to have in slalom. If you don't have it, when I started losing that, I think by the time my 3rd kid was born, dude, I was like definitely not going hard into jives, and you see like Cyril Musamani, he's just going to go no matter what. So if you don't have that instinct anymore, it's time to pull back, because everybody's going so hard and so aggressive and so cut inside. There was times where I definitely did some stupid sailing. I think you start graduating out of that, because you realize like that's not helpful. When you let yourself get too emotional, that's when you make some bad choices on the water, and I can be emotional at times. So yeah, I've been pretty competitive since I was a kid. My wife always laughs. My middle boy Josiah is like, he has to win everything. It's like if we're eating, he wants to like win the eating contest. If we're playing games, everything is like, and he somehow makes us all feel that he won. So it's probably a family trait somewhere. Winning was fun, but it's definitely not everything. But if you are going to compete, definitely compete to win. Don't waste your time traveling the world with all those board bags and masks and making not enough cash. And like, I'm happy with top 10. I mean, nowadays I would be, because it's so hard. But basically, go and try to win. That's what you got to do.
Okay.
So try to win, Maciek.
I will. I'm trying since 10 years. Get slowly, baby steps. So to close it off, looking back, if there is one achievement you could pinpoint, like, I'm the most proud of, what would it be? Or achievement, or life situation, whatever.
Oh, man, there's a lot. I mean, and I don't know what I'm most proud or look, all I can say, I'd rather say it like this. I just feel extremely blessed. I feel extremely blessed. I'm extremely grateful to know God, to know the Holy Spirit, to know Jesus. I'm extremely grateful to see that working in my life and my family's life. I'm extremely grateful to have had the opportunity to meet so many cool people around the world, the network we have internationally, everywhere around the world. The guys from the old days, Torkel Christensen, and these guys that guided us and helped us and lent a helping hand. The younger guys that I look to now and draw inspiration from. The Windsurf family. I mean, Jimmy and Rich Page, these guys that we don't always see eye to eye, but they're working to make the sport go forward. You know, Svein Rasmussen for his commitment to what he did in the sport and all the things he developed and what a kind of nutcase to do that kind of stuff, but in a good, focused and positive direction, you know, and have assisted and watched all these guys and, you know, the Bruce Wileys of this world that you compete with, and then you see these guys running the industry, you know, and it's just fun. It's just to be a part of it and have been blessed with it. I feel super relieved to have experienced and got those little world title things and put them away in the backpack, because it would be a little sense of frustration to me probably if I didn't, you know, to be honest. So I know God blessed me with that, and it's something to look on. The years in Cape Verde, the stuff we did here, it still gives me chills, to be honest, to know of that, just all that action, all that energy, the rocks, the people, the Africa, the rawness of it, to experience it, to be the first guys to sail Jaws, you know, really, me and the Aguirre brothers. That was pretty much, I mean, besides Brett and Kalama when it was not really breaking, and with Mark Pedersen up there, you know, the first day that I'd ever windsurfed when it was breaking, I was there. So I've had a lot of amazing opportunities and experiences, and look, there's still more ahead, bro. I might come spank you in Fuerte, you know, just for fun.
Bring it. I had to, bring it on.
Forgive me, Maciek. So thank you, but just windsurfing is greatest ever. I love it. And it's so hard to do, but it's so fun.
Quick hitters to end it. What are your pet peeves?
Probably my own impatience.
How many times a day do you pee your wetsuit?
I don't go in the water very often these days, so not many.
Guilty pleasure, aside from peeing the wetsuit?
Brownie cookies.
Your top 5 windsurfers of all time?
Mark, Jason, Bjorn, Robbie. Did I say Robbie? Robbie, he's kind of, you have to put him on there. And who else? There's so many. Who did I miss? Did I miss the other 195 top guys? That's a hardcore group. Top 5: Mark, Jason, Bjorn, Robbie. You know who I'm gonna put on there? Because he was always like a little kind of arch enemy stickler in my spine. Like I secretly was jealous of him, but he really ripped and stepped it up, was Nick Baker. You know, when he had like Sega and he was making all that cash and I was kind of being a donkey, he like kind of bugged the crap out of me. But the kid ripped, you know what I mean? And he's a super nice guy. So at the end of the day, I'll throw him in my top 5.
Most underrated of all time?
Most underrated? Luke Siver and maybe Andy Angulo, my other brother. He kills it, but nobody knows who he is. But yeah, the unknown brothers, I guess. Terry Belbiak, throw him on that list.
This is going to be, for you, it's easy, but we ask this to everyone. One spot you'd have to sail every day for the rest of your life. What would it be? I mean,
it probably wouldn't be Punta Preta because it's so hard and it takes so much energy out of you.
Oh, really?
If I had to sail one spot the rest of my life and I could have it alone, it would probably be Hokipa. You know, because Hokipa is just a little bit of a skate park. But the fact of you can't sail Hokipa, it's a nightmare with all the people. But if you could have good Punta Preta, for sure, that would, you know, good wind, no kiters. I don't know.
Worst excess baggage bill?
I don't recall, but I think it was actually out of Thailand once, and actually I think Svein Rasmussen helped me pay it. It was like $2,000 or something.
Most coffees you had in a day?
A lot. I've mellowed out, but I've definitely had like probably 10 espressos in a day, probably once.
Who's the best cook on tour?
Best cook on tour or
Well,
cook?
Yeah.
Cooking food or cook?
Cooking food, yeah. With a C,
Oh,
not with a K.
The best cook?
Yeah.
I have no idea, Maciek. Nobody that I've ever... Who makes food? Do you guys cook on tour?
Yeah, you guys used to eat out all the time, didn't you?
In Korea, I cooked in my hotel room every day.
There you go.
I guess I am. I don't know.
Who's your worst competitor that used to break your...
I used to get pretty edgy with Kevin Pritchard, you know. He snaked me in Punta Preta one year and cost me like the wave of the final. And he thinks it's my fault, but he knows it's his fault. So we still go back and forth on that one. But he was another one that was like super, you know, successful, goody two shoes. And I was jealous of him, but it turned into a healthy respect over time.
Last but not least, who do you want to hear on the podcast?
Who would I like to hear on the podcast?
Yeah.
Who's the best talker? I'd like to hear whoever, bro, whatever. I'm good with whatever. I'm happy. Sorry, I could have been. You can re-ask me that.
Don't worry about it.
Let me get it. I don't know. I want to watch Netflix. I want to watch the Jordan thing. The new episodes are when? Tomorrow?
Yesterday.
Oh, did the new ones come out?
Yeah, the last two of them.
Okay, I'm going right now. When we hang up, that's what I'm doing.
Definitely. And we are hanging up now. Thanks a lot, Josh, for your time. A lot of colorful insight.
Thank you, and to thank everybody out there who watched this. Thank you so much.
Did you make it? Did you make it all the way through? There we go. That is the first windsurfing podcast from Windsurfing.TV. I hope you liked it. Let us know in the comments any feedback. Also, we want to know from you guys who you want to see on the podcasts. You know, it can be people, world champs, brand managers, let's say board shapers, or it could be a subject where we basically just go on and we discuss a subject. There's a lot of room for doing a few things with the podcast theme. Obviously, it's long, and I want to know, you know, what you guys are thinking. It is available on Spotify. Maybe you were listening on Spotify, as well as YouTube. And then YouTube, we're going to be dropping in those video clips. Again, any feedback is welcome. Give us a thumbs up, like if you're on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because there is plenty more where that came from.